Hello, students. Here we go. This is Chapter 6, Lesson 5. If you're in the 7th grade, your book covers only direct objects in this chapter and lesson. If you're in 8th grade, it covers both direct and indirect objects. I figured it was easier just to cover this with one video. Save a little bit of time. So here we go. There is some vocabulary for this one that you need to make sure ends up in your ELA notes in the vocabulary section, specifically 3 terms. A direct object is a noun, pronoun, or group of words that tells who or what receives the action of the verb. And an indirect object is a noun, pronoun, or group of words that tells to what, to whom, for what, or for whom an action verb is done. Only action verbs can have direct objects and or indirect objects. So you need to know what an action verb is. An action verb is a word that tells what the subject does, expressing action that may be either physical or mental. One more quick note. If a sentence has an indirect object, it has a direct object. So please keep that in mind. I'll give you a moment to copy down this vocabulary. Good job. Outstanding. So the vocabulary is now going to go away, and I'm going to replace it with some instructions and some examples. All right. So first, the instructions. We need to remember that the different work that we do in English class, in grammar, it all adds, it all builds on what has come before. So when you're working on the preposition worksheets and you're crossing out the prepositions and things like that, that's really not just for those worksheets. You need to be doing that with other grammar activities as well. So to refresh our memory, when we are analyzing a sentence at this stage of the game, what we do is we cross out the prepositional phrases. We put infinitives in parentheses. That's something new that we've just started. And then we find the verb. Then we find who or what does the verb. That's the subject. And then we ask whom or what receives the action of the verb. That gives us the direct object, right? That should say whom or what receives the action of the verb. My bad. And then number 5, from whom or what or to whom or what is the verb done gives us our indirect object. Now, that might not be terribly clear at the moment, so let's look at some examples. So I'm going to put 4 example sentences up here for us to work with. So here I go, as soon as I get my right button clicked. Boom. And let's stretch those out across the screen, space them out just a little bit more. Bada bing. All right. So first thing I do is I cross out my prepositional phrases. So many centuries ago, Mayan Indians built a magnificent civilization in South and Central America. One prepositional phrase in this sentence, and it's right here, in South and Central America. I cross that out. None of those words can be anything else that I'm looking for. Then I look for the verb. Almost always going to be an action, and in this case, the verb is built. What's the action? Something is built, right? And I underline my verb twice. Just like on one of our worksheets. Oops, that didn't work. Let's try this again. Underline my verb twice. Very good. Then I ask who built. Who's doing the building? The Indians did the building. That's my subject. Mayan is an adjective, right? I'm focusing on just the simple subject. Okay. So Indians is my subject. Built is my verb. And now I ask, whom or what receives the action of the verb? In other words, the Indians built what? They built a civilization. And that, my dear students, is a direct object. Boom. If I ask for who or what this verb is done, there's no indirect object in this sentence. I'm done with this sentence. All right. Many centuries ago, we're not worried about Mayan, not worried about adjectives and adverbs and things like that. We will get to at later dates. All right. I do the same thing for my next sentence. European discovers, no, that's not right. European explorers discovered mysterious stone statues on Easter Island. Again, I have one prepositional phrase, on Easter Island. I put a line through it. It's gone. Then I ask myself, what's the verb? The verb is discovered. That's the action. Discovered. Who or what discovered? The explorers discovered. What did they discover? They discovered statues. That is another direct object. Boom. So far, notice no indirect objects in these first two examples. That's fixing to change. Okay. Sentence number 3, my grandmother sent me a postcard from Easter Island. What's the first thing I do? Right, I get rid of my prepositional phrases. I've got one of them, from Easter Island. It's gone, totally gone. Then the verb, sent. The action is sent. Who sent? Grandmother. That's my subject. What did grandmother send? She sent a postcard. Direct object. To whom did she send the postcard? To me. That is my indirect object. Boom. Notice the order here. The indirect object will almost always come between the verb and the direct object. Almost always. That's the way it works in this. I've got the verb, I've got the direct object, and in between them is the indirect object. Let's look at one more sentence. Mrs. Perez showed us photos of 2 of the statues, which are 10 feet tall. Whew. All right. Prepositional phrases. Of 2. Of what? Of 2. Of what? Of the statues. Which are 10 feet tall? Not a prepositional phrase. We're not really worried about what that is at this point in time. It's a type of subordinate clause, right? This is a complex sentence, sort of. We're not really worried about it right now. Okay, we'll get to that. What's the verb? Showed. I underlined my verb twice. What's the subject? Who showed? Mrs. Perez showed. Ooh, and now our new questions. What did Mrs. Perez show? And to whom did she show it? Okay. What did Mrs. Perez show? She showed photos. That's a direct object. To whom did she show the photos? To us. Indirect object. And notice there's that pattern again. Verb, direct object with the indirect object in the middle. Okay. When you're printing and you're working on the worksheets for 6.5, please do the sentences this way. It will help you get correct answers more often than not. That's it for this video, and thank you very much. I hope you had as much fun listening to this as I did recording it.